2023 Spring Band Concert. My name is Caleb Beard and I'm the band director here at Noble High School. You just had the pleasure to hear the NHS Jazz Ensemble perform Emergency Stopping Only by Craig Skeffington, the South Portland High School band director. It featured solos by Moses Tebow on trombone, Trevor Patterson on trumpet, and Miles Plummer on drums. Before we continue, we do have a few housekeeping items to go over. Please make sure that anything that makes sound is turned off. Our students are the ones creating the music tonight, and we want to give all of our attention to them. Also, please refrain from talking or whispering while the students are playing. What might seem quiet to you spreads very well in this auditorium. In your programs, you'll see a small piece of paper with an outline of a flower on it. Please feel free to fill them out and place them in the collection baskets on either side of the hall at the end of the concert. We love to hang these notes of encouragement up for our students in our music wing, and they are a visual representation of their concert experience once the night is over. You will also find information in your program about festivals from this past year, select program notes from pieces, and a list of upcoming events. We have also been selling our Noble Music stickers and magnets. Please feel free to visit Dr. Giddings off to the side when we're doing stage changes or at the end of the concert. If you didn't bring in cash or checks this evening, you can always reach out to either of us, and we'd be happy to get them for you. All funds benefit the NHS Music Department. Our next piece is Just Friends, composed by John Klenner and Sam M. Lewis and arranged by Joe Jackson. This piece will feature Brett Comiskey on tenor sax and Natalia Rothwell on piano. It allowed the jazz ensemble to work on concepts including timing, articulation, and extreme dynamic contrast. Enjoy. Charles Mingus Jr. was an American jazz upright bassist, pianist, composer, bandleader, and author. A major proponent of collective improvisation, he is considered to be one of the greatest jazz musicians and composers in history, with a career spanning 3 decades in collaborations with other jazz musicians, such as Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, and Herbie Hancock. Mingus's work ranged from advanced bebop and avant-garde jazz with small and mid-sized ensembles, pioneering the post-bop style, to progressive big band experiments. Fables of Faubus is one of Mingus's most explicitly political work. The piece was written as a direct protest against Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus, who in 1957 sent out the Arkansas National Guard to prevent the racial integration of Little Rock Central High School by 9 African-American teenagers in what became known as the Little Rock Crisis. Originally at orders of the governor, the National Guard was meant to prevent the black students from entering due to claims that there was imminent danger of tumult, riot, and breach of peace at the integration. However, President Eisenhower issued Executive Order 10730, which federalized the Arkansas National Guard and ordered them to support the integration on September 23rd of that year, after which they protected the African American students. This piece was first recorded in 1959 and was so very different from the styles of the time that even some record companies wouldn't play it. The piece asked the players to play defiantly and sardonically, or in a mocking style, and expresses musical outrage in regards to the Little Rock Crisis. Fables of Faubus allowed Mingus to express his feelings of what was occurring in one of the only ways he could, musically. When this piece is traditionally performed, unlike other jazz pieces, we are asking you as the audience to hold all applause until the end. Please listen all the way through and do not clap after the soloist, as is usually traditionally done. This tune will feature an introduction by Ian Lowry on bari sax, and we will have solos by Elsa Christensen on trumpet, Trevor Pattison on trumpet, and Gavin Willett on clarinet trading eights, and Nicholas Adam on alto sax. Here's Fables of Bacchus. recognize our graduating seniors from the Jazz Ensemble. We will hear their individual plans during the Symphonic band portion, but for the moment, can I have all seniors on stage please stand and be recognized? Seniors will also be wearing a red flower, so you'll see them at different points with their flower. Our final piece from the Jazz Ensemble tonight is Out of the Doghouse by Eric Morales. The shuffle bass chart sounds like a big old freight train coming down the tracks. There are mild influences of New Orleans street beat, 50s rock and roll, and rockabilly styles throughout. We use this piece to really dive deep into improvisation and swing style. It will feature a wide range of soloists, including Shar Smith, Trevor Beans, Ash Becto, Owen Forbes, Alec Terrio, Trevor Patterson, Miles Plummer, or 2 M's, you told me to say that, and Ian Lowry. After this piece, we will quickly reset the stage for the next ensemble. We hope you enjoy. film that you can with your turn back row and front to back. Okay? This is the slide that goes into there. Right up over here. And if you'd like to buy a sticker, Dr. Giddings is right over there. One more chair and stand to the side real quick. Okay, all of them over there. All right, thank you. Back in the early fall, a group of students came to me and expressed an interest in performing this piece called Instant Concert. We had sight read it at the end of the school year last year, and while it wasn't in the plan of pieces for this year, they still wanted to play it. I told them if they found enough players to do it, learn the parts on their own, and if they were ready by the concert, we could perform it. I think we had 3 rehearsals where all I did was conduct, and then yesterday's dress rehearsal. The fun part about this piece is it's made up of about 4 to 8 measures of over 25 different pieces. Following this, we'll bring up the rest of the symphonic band. Here is Instant Concert.
Charles, stay a little bit so that we can- Put that in there. Need more light.
This past weekend, Dr. Giddings and myself were fortunate to bring 11 NHS students to participate in the Maine All-State Music Festival. While we were there, we were also able to present the award of Outstanding Administrator to our principal, A.J. Dufort, and share how he has supported us. We are very fortunate here at Noble High School and in MSA V60 to have such supportive administration across all levels. If you have a minute in the upcoming days and are enjoying what we are doing here in the Performing Arts Department, please send a message to our administration letting them know. We often receive your messages and share them with our admin, but there's always a different impact when they hear directly from our parents and guardians. John Mackey has written for orchestra, theater, and extensively for dance, but the majority of his work for the past decade has been for wind ensembles, and his band catalog now receives annual performances numbering in the thousands. In 2014, he became the youngest composer ever inducted into the American Band Masters Association. Mackey's music is often more non-traditional when compared to other band pieces. He himself never learned to play an instrument and instead taught himself composition using computer programs. Mackey says in his program notes, "The idea with Foundry was to make a piece that celebrates the fact that percussionists have the ability to make just about anything into an instrument. Snare drums and bass drums are great, but why not write a whole piece featuring non-traditional percussion? Things like salad bowls and mixing bowls and piles of metal." In some cases, I was specific about what instrument to play, timpani, xylophone, etc. With many of the parts, though, I only described what sound I wanted. Play a clang, a metal instrument probably struck with a hammer that creates a rich clang sound, and allow the percussionist to be creative in finding the best instrument to make the sound I described. It won't be surprising that Foundry for concert band with found percussion, much of it metallic, ends up sounding like a steel factory. This composer thanks the required 10 to 12 percussionists for allowing his ridiculous request to continue. Clang. That's what he wrote. Response now. At this time, I would like to acknowledge our senior musicians. Most of these students have been playing and sharing their music with us since 4th grade, which shows their dedication to the art of band music and commitment to the program. It is always hard as we have grown so used to having you in the music wing every day, but we know you will be going on to great things. We will miss you, but know that you have had an impact on this program and have helped shape it is to what it is today. Once I read your name and future plan, please come up to the podium to receive a complete set of all band programs you performed this year, along with a note from me. Please hold your applause until the future plan has been read. Nicholas Adam will be attending the University of Southern Maine and pursuing music with concentration unknown. Elsa Christensen will be attending the University of Southern Maine and majoring in music education with a concentration on trumpet. Ash Fecta will be taking a gap year and then will be attending Husson University for audio engineering. Cole Hagstrom will be attending York County Community College and working. Shrey Kumar will be attending Southern Maine Community College and is majoring in health sciences. Ian Lowry will be entering the workforce. Alexia Morin will be attending York County Community College for 2 years for an associate's in health studies before transferring to a university or technical school to study a diagnostic medical sonography program. Alex Myers will be attending the University of New Hampshire for veterinary technology. And Miles Plummer will be attending the University of Southern Maine and will be studying music performance and jazz studies. We have 2 awards that we bestow upon 2 graduating seniors. The first is the Louis Armstrong Jazz Award. This award goes to a graduating senior in recognition of outstanding achievements in the field of jazz, as demonstrated through superior musicianship, character, and individual creativity. I am honored to present the Louis Armstrong Jazz Award to Miles Plummer. The second award is the John Philip Sousa Band Award. This award goes to a graduating senior in recognition of outstanding achievement in instrumental music, for singular merit in loyalty and cooperation, and for displaying those high qualities of conduct the school instrumental music requires. I would like to present the John Philip Sousa Band Award to Elsa Christensen. Thank you all for attending tonight. Before we get to our last piece, I have a few reminders and announcements. First, please make sure to fill out that flower in the program so we can display your words on our walls. We also have Clinks bags that you can take, fill up, and bring to a Hannaford Clink location. The money raised helps us buy instruments, music, and bring in guest artists. Also, at the conclusion of the concert, if we can have students help bring instruments back to the band room and stack stands and chairs, that would help Mr. Eaton and his crew. Now it is time for the last piece. I had the pleasure of meeting Paul Cravens when we were both in grad school together at UNH. I was working on my master's in instrumental conducting, and Paul was working on a master's of composition, studying with Andrew Boysen Jr. During that time, I was able to see Paul's musical voice grow and develop. One of those pieces he worked on was the one we will perform tonight, Toward a Dream of Tomorrow. It was commissioned by the Spalding High School Band in Rochester, New Hampshire. The deadline approached for the first playable draft, and Paul had a bit of composer's block when working on it. As a last resort, he utilized a random number generator to assist in the creation of pitch material. After establishing some simple parameters, he turned the program loose and received the pitches C, A, F, and E flat, which presents verbatim as the opening chime figure and subsequently forms the basis of the entire piece. This set, or a variation of it, can be heard at all times, whether in the melody, the bass, or the polyrhythmic ostinato of the mallet percussion. Paul was able to Zoom with us a few weeks ago and answer questions the students had about the process and the piece. I am also excited to announce that we have commissioned Paul to write a piece for our symphonic band. Next spring, we will be premiering a brand new work written just for us as the finale of our spring concert. The students will get to contribute to the piece along the way and meet with Paul again next year. It is exciting for them to see how the music we are performing comes into existence and to be the performers who get to play something for the very first time. Now, without further ado, here is the NHS Symphonic Band performing Toward a Dream of Tomorrow by Paul Craven.